we could pretend to form an attachment.
When we saw the trailer on the upcoming section of Netflix, we thought Bridgerton was going to be just like every other pompous movie about the royals or some snarky, soulless, high-class family, but we were wrong. The show was one of Netflix's biggest hits in 2020, and trust me, it isn't just about the pretty dude. Bridgerton feels different from other romance adaptations, and a quick delve into the making of the show will not only show you why, but also keep you intrigued. The series was set in England's early 1800s, and in order to achieve that setting and look, a lot of effects were put into the movie. Makeup and aesthetics, visual effects, and CGI. Only with all of these effects put into place were they able to achieve the beautiful series we all love. However, we can't help but wonder what the series would be like without the effects. Well, today, we're going to be showing you what Bridgerton looks like without any sort of CGI. But before we get into it, please don't forget to like this video and also comment on it as well, hit that subscribe button, and smack the notification bell so you're always kept up to date on everything we put out. First and foremost, the visual effects team that worked on the movie had shed light on a lot of how the filming and editing of different scenes worked. The VFX team worked on nearly 600 shots, which was overseen by Bill Giorgio, the VFX supervisor. The team completed many standard cleanup shots, including wig fixes, fire removals, and modesty fixes. They were also instrumental in transforming the environments from overcast, foggy London into a lush green world complete with a dramatic blue sky and clouds, CGI plants, flowers, and trees of various varieties through multiple shots. The visual team was not only responsible for building trees, branches, and blooms, but they also motioned in the leaves and branches so it would match what was happening in each of their plates. According to one of us VFX supervisors, Victor Tommy, the key challenge that he faced with his team was the accurate portrayal of the streets and buildings of Georgian London. They attempted to replicate the two finest houses on Grosvenor Square. The two family houses were modeled based on litter scans of the originals and then enhanced with embellishments and vegetation, adding to their grandeur. An ornamental garden, also fully CG, is the centerpiece of this exclusive neighborhood. The digital environment provides many of the establishing shots, which ended up leading us into the competing households. Next up, the series was set in an era that had to look exactly like they were in that era, but they couldn't build everything to look that way, so they employed the use of CGI for some of the buildings. The show uses CGI for some views in London that viewers get to admire in the series. Despite the use of computer technology, some fans and historians have called out the series for not always being on point in terms of historical accuracy. While some locations were enhanced by CGI, others could have used a little bit more of that computer graphic magic. In one scene, we see Simon, played by Reggie Jean Page, parade in front of a closed window shop sporting clothing retailer Primark posters. I'm pretty sure there was no Primark back in the 1800s. But that isn't all. Others have even pointed out that in the very beginning of the series shot in Bath, England, you could see modern streetlights as well as yellow no standing lines clearly visible. Given that the characters were still traveling around by horse-drawn carriage, there is no way that the inclusion would have been historically accurate. Well, these are clearly mistakes made in their attempt to perfect the use of CGI in the series, but the fans made sure to air their opinions. One fan even said, quote, "Really enjoying Bridgerton, but with the technology available to filmmakers these days, a yellow line, well, hopefully it's better and they pay more attention in the second season." Moving along, we also need to note that the series color grading also had a huge amount of visual effects applied to it. The show has an ostentatiously vivid palette and is lit throughout by the warmth of sunshine or candles. Having spent 7 months on set, Tommy had a strong sense of the aesthetic that the creators were after. In collaboration with his team, he went all out to create visual effects, which extended and enriched this Regency fantasy world and were in harmony with the visual tone of the show. The palette for the Featheringtons can be well described as eye-searing and butterflies. The Bridgertons, in contrast, are a cool blue studded with bees. But it's not just any blue, it's Wedgwood, the famous English bone china that became a staple in the Regency era. The bumblebee is the bête noire of the Bridgerton family, as fans of Quinn's book will know. One of Us's animated beads leads us in and out of various key moments. It's a period piece that takes place in 18th century England with gorgeous costumes and production design. Yet, it's also incredibly contemporary. Much of it was, of course, built into the principal cinematography. However, seeing the show come together in the post was delightful, and the visual tone evolved according, keeping in step with the narrative. It's rich and opulent. Up next, many other things used in the film were built from scratch. The costume, furniture, accessories, you name it. According to costume designer Elin Morik, Bridgerton is the biggest show of her career, and they had over 230 people work on the outfits from scratch. The Regency-era outfits took over 5 months to create, and they had a range of 7,800 outfits. The end result is astonishing. Every costume that you see in the Bridgerton series, from the more than 100 dresses worn by lead Phoebe DeVore, who plays Daphne Bridgerton, to the most fleeting look at a background character, was all handmade. Every accessory, from gloves to fasteners to purses and shoes to jewelry Mjornik declared early on, Edna Mode style, there would be no bonnets. Daphne was fitted with over 100 different outfits in the first season alone, and as for Queen Charlotte, we never saw her in the same dress or wig twice, and her wigs always matched her dresses. So it shouldn't come as a surprise when the cast members weren't allowed to pick as little as a lapel pin from the costumes. The actor who had played Anthony confessed that he was desperate to keep Anthony's signet ring, but they didn't let him. The clothes weren't the only thing that they made for the series. They even made furniture. One of the show's conceits is that the dark look of furnishing, which usually characterizes period pieces, is the dirt of ages. According to Bridgerton, in 1813, everything was as bright as if it were newly made. This meant everything was made from scratch for the show, down to the curtains and carpets. Up next, a lot was put into making the series on spot in terms of Regency-era film. The cast had to spend weeks at a Regency boot camp where they trained on horseback riding, dancing, etiquette, voice lessons, pistol training, and even boxing, among other things. In an interview with Phoebe DeVore, who played Daphne Bridgerton, she said, quote, "We literally did it all. We had amazing intimacy coordinators who had horse riding lessons, dance rehearsals, etiquette training, piano lessons, so we ticked every box in that subject." Denver wasn't the only one with a few words about the Regency camp. Jonathan Bailey added, quote, "It was like a summer camp. He said FIFA fan Luke Newton, Colin Bridgerton, ensured there was always a game on the go, and revealed there was also a quote-unquote coffee crew. And on a nice day, he joked, everyone would just sort of sunbathe and roll around in their corsets, so there was always something going on." Everyone seems to love Simon and Daphne together as a couple, but what you don't know is that the two didn't have as much chemistry in the beginning. In fact, they had to hire an intimacy coordinator. Phoebe DeVore said, quote, "It was so well written that we had an incredible intimacy coordinator who really helped us develop that kinship with each other and make sure the scenes were authentic and truthful, and that we felt comfortable." Up next, you can't just spring out of 2020 to the 1800s and expect to look like you were born in the Regency era. It was all makeup. Mark Pilcher, the show's head makeup and hair designer, explained his inspiration for the makeup. He said, quote, "My designs were derived from images of Audrey Hepburn in the 1950 film War and Peace. That film, although made in the 50s, was also set in the Regency period, and the look suited Daphne to the ground. It also took inspiration from official portraits and historical images from England's Regency era, which I love." The makeup wasn't even the most challenging part for him. When it comes to the biggest challenge he faced, Mark unsurprisingly points to Queen Charlotte, Gorda Rojvel, known for her wigs. It's no surprise to hear some of the wigs from the Netflix drama took up 4 weeks to make, and that the cast members such as Eloise Bridgerton, Claudia Jessie, have spoken up to getting up at 4:30 a.m. for hair and makeup so that they could take over 2 hours to apply. According to him, the showrunner told him the Queen had nothing else to do with her life than to try on dresses and wigs. So he suggests they give her different wigs in different scenes. Mark would go on to say, quote, "We actually ended up using more wigs than normal. Usually, we would use a lot of the actor's own hair and just add pieces, but we had so many characters that had specific characteristics. For example, the Featheringtons all have to be redheads. Luckily, we had a really nice budget, so we were able to create a variety of wigs for each and every character."